Welcome to It's Later Than You Think, the podcast about living in the moment, enjoying the ride, and making the most out of our lives. I'm your host, Patrick Ailshire, a 40-something-year-old Wisconsinite, sharing my experiences and encouraging you to rethink time, purpose, and everything in between. Let's make the most of right now. As the quite empty 8-person gondola doors closed behind us, my mother, father, and myself were ready to embark on a 10-minute ride up the mountainside in Squamish, British Columbia, roughly an hour bus ride north of Vancouver. Our jaws dropped as we realized how beautiful the landscape was. It was a moment I will not forget for a while at how amazing the scenery was, how quiet the gondola ride was, up 7,000 feet in the air, mind you, which would put us roughly 3,000 feet above sea level. The Sea to Sky gondola was just one of many things I did throughout my time in Vancouver that made me very thankful for the opportunity to be able to travel, to leave Milwaukee, to leave Wisconsin, to leave the US, not only for the opportunity to travel with my parents, but to be able to see and experience the things that we did, to get out of the day-to-day routine that we normally live. Today, we're diving into why you should travel. Not just for the photos, not for the bucket list bragging rights, but for something deeper. For the ways it cracks you open, shakes your assumptions, and leaves you a little bit more awake to the world. I'd love to be able to share that this was one of many dozens of vacations or trips that I've taken overseas, that I've traveled all over the place, but unfortunately that is not true. I actually haven't even left North America yet. I will say yet, because I will be getting elsewhere at some point. I don't want to go down a whole backstory, but since I'm in my early 40s now, my first decade of wanting to travel in my 20s was filled with still being a college student, graduating as a classroom teacher. 1, I couldn't really afford it. 2, trying to pay my bills, student loans, etc. It just didn't really give me much of the opportunity. Not until I left teaching in 2018 have I really started to want to travel again, to be able to afford to travel, to start to plan things out. We had a little thing called COVID that did get in the way a little bit of my plans, but I am very glad and appreciative that I have made it to Manhattan a couple times, went to Boston, been out to San Francisco area, and then of course your Midwest places that I've driven to, not to go into too much detail there. But I want to say yet. I have not left the continent yet. Made it down to Mexico with my family 20-some years ago. Was just in Vancouver. Also was in Ontario on a fishing trip many years ago. But here we are. So what I'd like to do today is go through a handful of points of why you should travel if you have the means, if you have the opportunity. The first reason that I think traveling is important is that it breaks the routine. Travel breaks autopilot. The mundane, the day-to-day life that we all live, it's structured, it can be fairly predictable, sometimes often numbing. We know what we're going to eat, where we're going to drive, even who you'll talk to. And traveling is a way to disrupt that. Suddenly, you're navigating a new subway or train system, ordering food in a foreign language, noticing street signs and architecture, taking walking tours of new cities, talking to the locals about the hot spots to go visit. Bring in science to this a little bit. New environments spark brain activity, boost creativity, and increase neuroplasticity. Being out of routines forces you to notice. You become present again, not because you're trying to meditate, but because you have to. A quote from American author Neil Donald Walsh: "Life begins at the end of your comfort zone." So what happens when you get out of your usual surroundings? You don't just wake up, you grow. The second reason is that travel grows empathy and worldview. It expands your perspective. When you see how people live outside your bubble, in different homes, faiths or religions, languages, it challenges your assumptions. Small realizations, such as rice for breakfast, shops that close at noon, families that eat together every night. These aren't weird, they're just different. Travel teaches you to be a respectful outsider. You're the guest now. Having that humility is powerful. You begin to understand cultural nuance. Not everything is better or worse, just shaped by history, geography, and values. And when you return home, you may see your own culture through a new lens. You realize what you take for granted and what you value more deeply. I felt this way when I returned from my recent trip to Vancouver. I was really glad I was able to take the trip, but I was also very thankful to be back home. Not only did I get out of my day-to-day routine when I left, but it allowed me to come back and get into that routine again, which I think is healthy. That's one of the reasons we travel, to experience other things, to enjoy the time we're away from our homes, but also to come back to what we know. When we start to miss our homes and our day-to-day lives, that's when we know that traveling is working for us. As Anthony Bourdain once said, "Travel isn't always pretty, but it changes you." Of course, not all lessons are wrapped in postcards. Some come in uncomfortable moments. Which leads me to my third point: growth through discomfort. The challenge of travel helps you grow. So such things as missing a flight, navigating with no cell service. Can you believe that? Or dealing with jet lag. These aren't fun, but they teach you resilience. Planning ahead is always important so you don't perhaps miss a flight, but maybe it's out of your control. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe the connecting flight didn't get to your destination on time. But if you're able to, take a deep breath and learn that resilience, that's going to go a long way. Discomfort also makes you adaptable. You learn how to problem solve under stress. Even simple things like ordering from a menu with no pictures becomes mini adventures. You may not really be familiar with what is on the menu. And, instead of getting all stressed out, that can be kind of fun to try to figure it out. Or even you can ask the waiter or waitress to help you explain and give you a better visual of what that item might be. Travel also forces you to rely on your instincts and sometimes the kindness of strangers. That builds courage and trust. Every challenge faced becomes a story, one that shaped you in ways sitting at home never could. I think that's a really important part. The vacation, the trip, the travel you take, it's never going to go perfectly. It just won't. There's going to be something that comes up. Even if it's one little minor thing in all the positivity of your vacation, something will happen. And it's seeing the silver lining. It's understanding that that's how life works, but it's dirting off your shoulders and understanding that going through this discomfort has helped you become stronger in the long run. So you know now, next time, that you can deal with that adversity. Former Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes had said, "A mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions." As we get into this last segment, let's be real. Not every trip is perfect, and that's okay. So the last point I want to make, travel isn't always glamorous. The value of travel isn't how perfect it looks. So I alluded to some of this a few moments ago. We know that social media, specifically your Instagram, which has lots of photos and reels, sells travel as glossy, flawless, beach sunset perfection. Real travel? It could be missed trains, rain-soaked jeans, awkward translations. But that's where the real stuff happens. The memories you laugh about, the things that bond you to others. The other thing is, you don't have to travel far. I've gone to a lot of different places just in the US, and I've been thankful that I've been able to do that, and I'm glad, and I've experienced a lot. Even visiting a neighboring town, trying a new cuisine, or hiking a new trail can be deeply rewarding. You can do that in your own state. There's also value in slow travel. Staying in one place, connecting with locals, being rather than just doing. It's not about the checklist. It's about the change in you. Maybe you take a staycation and you become a tourist in your own town. Try new experiences. Ask the locals about where you should go, even if you are a local. So whether it's the other side of the planet or just the other side of your state, remember that travel can change you, and it's worth it. Travel helps you wake up, understand others, grow through discomfort, and embrace that imperfection. It helps remind us that the world is wide, diverse, and beautiful, and that we are just a small part of it. So I want to encourage you, if you've been putting off that trip, book it. If you've never traveled far, start small. Let your curiosity take the wheel and trust that the road will meet your feet. I know there may be some of you listening that don't travel because maybe you don't have the means to. But I'd say look around and see if there's any way to make it work. Whether it's budgeting, whether it's looking at your expenses, are there certain things you need to spend, or you're just doing it because you want to spend it on? Saving a few bucks here and there, that adds up over time. And again, maybe it's not a flight to Europe. Maybe it's not a flight cross country. Maybe it's a road trip to somewhere in your state or a neighboring state. Maybe it's not staying at the 4 or 5-star hotels. Maybe it's an Airbnb. Maybe you're sharing a place with roommates. This week, take one step towards something new. It could be a different neighborhood, a book or about a distant land, or a conversation with someone from another culture. Let the journey begin, even if it's just in your mind. If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to share with others. You can find us on Instagram at It's Later Than You Think podcast, as well as our Facebook page. We are on multiple streaming sites such as Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Pandora, and iHeartRadio, to name a few. We will catch you next week. Take it easy.